I get those goosebumps, baby. I get those goosebumps every time I'm around you. These are mine, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time I keep that line, throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, throw that to the side.
Hello and welcome to the news. Yes, not a happy reaction show tonight. So yes, that's why we're in red text on the screen. We're getting serious. It's time to mix it up a bit. Okay, lucky enough we didn't do this show yesterday evening. It would have been a disaster. So and lucky enough we changed it from a reaction show to we have a problem. How are we going to fix it? And we're going to go through a loaded masterclass tonight. We'll see if it makes any difference. We'll see if we can come up with any suggestions that perhaps Eddie can take on board because we know he watches. Um, but first of all, how are you, lads? Pete, I'll start with you. How are you?
Um, I've spent the day taking stock. I've got to be honest. Of the start of the season, just as a whole, not just yesterday. Um, it helps that my little girl went and bagged 6 goals today in the first game of the season. So
Yay!
I'm
Can
absolutely
we do a
buzzing at
review of
that.
that show of that game?
Oh,
Actually, that
I
might be
could do
better.
that all day long, all day long. And you know what? She could have scored 7, but there was one that was going through, and I was the linesman for her. Like,
You like that?
Ah,
oh my god, I feel so bad. But she was off like millimeters. I probably could have like put the flag down and let her play, and she would have been absolutely fine. But I was trying to be a stickler for the rules. Anyway, taking stock right now of all things Newcastle United, and for me, boys, international breaks come at a very good time. I can't lie.
cool. Chris, we'll go to you and message to Dan Potts. Clip that. There's no heads down. We're coming with answers to problems. There's no heads down. Heads held high. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. Yeah, I've had a nice weekend. It's been nice, apart from the football. But no, I completely agree with what Pete said. Like, it's funny. I know Eddie House said, "Oh, he wished he had a game coming up." I actually am quite glad that we've got this little break now because I think we need to take stock, reflect, and think of some new ideas to try and change this up because I think we're all in agreement that it's not really working at the moment. So I think us having a bit of a gap between matches is going to be a good thing. So yeah, but other than the football, Daz, I'm absolutely fine. Thanks, mate. And more importantly, Daz, how are you?
I'm okay. Yeah. I did obviously watch the game live, and we watched all the discussion afterwards. But I had a little bit of a refresher by watching match of the day, the clips, and just to depress myself again. I felt I was it was getting over it. I needed to depress myself again coming into this show. But yeah, look, let's go. Let's go for this. We'll do a really quick review. First up, here's the team. Changes were Botman is out, Burn in the middle, and Target in, and J7 past fit. I don't know about that, but past fit to play, and the Brighton team as well. Any thoughts on the lineup, lads? Oh, we just bypassed that altogether.
I'm not gonna lie, it was good to see him on the bench, but I wanted Lewis Hall to start. I'm not a massive fan of Mikey Target. I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah.
And nothing yesterday kind of fills me with any confidence that my mind's going to change on that. But hey, it is what it is. But
we spoke about it on the away days, didn't we, Pete? I know it was probably unlikely, and I know you asked me the question, Pete, what would be your lineup? And I think I picked exactly the same lineup as Eddie, apart from I had Lewis Hall into the Target. And it's no big offence to Target. I just feel like we need more from our left back. And I'm going to come on to this later, boys. So if we have time later, do ask me what my devil's advocate question is, because it kind of links in a little bit with Lewis Hall and others. So yeah, other than the Target at left back, no real concerns, to be honest, Oz.
We couldn't do a show without Chris Devil's Advocate's question. It's part of the contract, I suppose. Let's move on. Apologies, I'm going to fly through this. I'm going to do first half and second half, and we'll just talk about after that then. First half, shaky start for Brighton, chances for Newcastle, but Newcastle needed to wake up. They were looking sloppy. We didn't know how sloppy at that stage, though. Who I asked the question here, who from midfield is supporting the attack? For example, Isak's cut back, there was no one there. 26 minutes though. Pope, he should have passed to Trippier and played on. It could have been a different game potentially, but he made a fuck up. He went long. Brighton kept the ball in play, and yeah, it led to Evan Ferguson's first goal. Pope put himself under pressure. He made 2 saves to try and keep it out, but yeah, he fumbled it. Questions for me then about just on Pope, and I know we'll get to it later on as well. But Pope on his after they come back after his operation as well. If you think about it, he didn't have much of a pre-season, and yeah, is there still something there? And I know Pete, you alluded to it as well. He's never looked the same since the whole Liverpool debacle last year, and we know playing with his feet is not his strong point. Okay. Yeah, and leading to that goal as well, there was a poor attempted clearance from Tonali, and there was no conviction to block it down. But then moving on to the second half, shocking stuff again in the second half. Where the changes coming from, we're looking very, very poor. Changes came then on the 57th minute. Wilson on for J7, who was not fit. Longstaff on for Tonali. Anderson on for Mickey. Started to look positive going forward, but 64 minutes, the sucker punch, Evan Ferguson, a great goal, but where was the mark? And we said as well in our own chat, that's the ideal position for a number 6 would sit. There's no one picking him up at all. He'd loads of time to pick his spot, and he's well able to do that. Then moving on, Gordon had a shot, 66 minutes. Ferguson added a goal number 3, deflected off Char's leg. Char gave up to me when we went 2-0 down. I know he kind of looked at it, there was after he seemed to be kind of holding his leg a bit for a while, but it was just getting embarrassing now at this stage. Lascelles come on, Barnes come on, Target, and Isak went off. Wilson goal after a punt up from Longstaff. That's really it. That's just there's a lot of questions to be asked, and we're going to get into that. But that's your thoughts on anything to do with the game there before we move on.
Go on, Chris. Go for it, fella.
As a whole, this is a bit worrying. Just, I suppose the biggest concern for me was, and the word I'd use is just lackluster. We just didn't look at it. And that's a big concern for me. And there was a few very, very, very poor individual performances. And to include in that, I'd say Nick Pope, I'd say Fabian Schär, I'd say Bruno, I'd say Burn. I could probably add more. J7. There was so many to mention.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I could just list the whole team. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think some of the lads out there were trying. And I think, they didn't, I wouldn't say they let themselves down in any way, but I just think if you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 players even who are playing poorly, it's very difficult for the others, to try and, pull the team together, if you like. So that was particularly disappointing. I thought Brighton played really well. I thought Brighton fully deserved the win. yes, we've had a difficult start, and I appreciate, we've played the likes of Man City, we've played Villa, we've played Liverpool, and now we've played Brighton. Not an easy start, don't get me wrong. And I'm still, I saw Lisa's comment in the chat, I am still on the positivity train, because at the end of the day, we drew a lot of games last season. I know we only lost 5 and we've already lost 3. I understand that, but we did draw a hell of a lot of games. So if we can turn some of those draws from last season into wins, we can soon catch that up. So I'm not giving up hope, but I was majorly concerned yesterday because, dare I say it, it did feel a little bit like the Bruce days at times, where you're just watching and the fans were absolutely brilliant and, singing all the way through. And I thought that was fantastic. But there comes a point, doesn't there, where, this kind of blind loyalty, I have a bit of a problem with that, because some of those players didn't deserve those fans that were there at the Amex, because the fans were absolutely fantastic. And I don't think the players performed and put in the effort that, the fans did by travelling all that way and singing for the whole, 95, 96 minutes. So that was disappointing for me. And I think Eddie Howe's got a long 2 weeks ahead of him now to try and come up with some kind of solution, because just to put in a couple of points, which I'm sure we'll discuss in more detail, the midfield's not working. When Sven Botman's out of this side, we look poor. Nick Pope looks shot in terms of his confidence. And then I see as well that we reverted to Alexander Isak on the wing again, with Callum Wilson through the middle. Not necessarily sure that's the answer. The one pleasing thing, which we haven't seen since Anthony Gordon joined, was Anthony Gordon actually played on the right wing. So it was nice to see him out there for a little bit. But yeah, lots. I've got lots of questions following that game, put it that way. Will that determine our season? No, it won't. But, it's more the performance and the manner of it. I mean, Brighton were fantastic. I thought Estupinian was just something else. I thought he was brilliant down that left-hand side. And he caused us all kinds of problems. And Mitoma and Ferguson. So many good performances, but so many poor performances from us. So yeah, that's really my summary of the game. I think we've lost Daz. Is Daz still there?
I thought you guys had lost me then. I was panicking. I was thinking, what's going on? But then I see you moving. Where do we start? Unfortunately, lads.
Pete, we get your thoughts on the game as well.
I'll continue on. I think
you go on. You carry on.
There's a bit of a slight delay there, but that performance was a performance that I'm familiar with. Unfortunately, pre-takeover, pre-Eddie Howe, I've seen that. But we talked about it before we came on, Chris and Daz. We've seen that performance before. That type of performance, it was poor. I tweeted out and said it was horrendous, and I stand by that. There were a few that kind of were saying, but compared to the teams that we played at the start of the season, last season we're only 1 point worse off or whatever. Every season's different. We can't compare to games that we've played seasons before. And it was a concern. I am concerned by that performance, the lack of intensity, the lack of press, the lack of effort. There was a lot missing of what we've been or come accustomed to in the last year, 18 months. We didn't see any of it in that game. And I've got to be honest, Brighton won and they won 3-1, but they didn't have to work hard to win that game. They really didn't. We did not put them under pressure. We talked about in the away days, Chris, about West Ham, and Adam talked about how West Ham dismantled them and the counter attack and the press and all the rest of it. We show nothing of that, and there's a lot of factors that let that down. Sven Botman not being there is massive. It shows how important he is. He is crucial to us moving forward. And then when you're gifting teams opportunities by making mistakes, this is what happens, unfortunately. But I think there's a little bit to unpack there from that performance and ultimately from the start of this season, because look, I honestly believe that we are going to turn this around. I think we're going to start picking up points after this international break. I am confident of that. But up against top teams, this is a concern because we're about to play a lot of top teams in the Champions League, and we've got Man City in the Cup, and we've still got a lot of top teams to come, particularly in December, I believe, where we have a run of games where we're playing against top teams in the Champions League and top teams in the Premier League. We need to be ready and more and better equipped to deal with this. So hopefully this is a bit of a kick up the arse for the players and Eddie Howe to really sort of turn it on. But let's see.
Question for you both, lads, and I know we're going to get into solutions or potential solutions, but is you said, Pete, that you think we can turn it around. Could we turn it around enough to still be in contention for a top 4 spot? Bearing in mind of what we have to come on both the Champions League and whatever other European competition as well, if we were to drop out of the Champions League.
Me personally, I think we're still in competition for Champions League. I
suppose top 5 it could be potentially as well. So that you never know.
Yeah, the top 5 will get the Champions League. But for me, look, there are certain teams that are playing really well at the moment. You know, West Ham has started the season well. Tottenham has started the season well. There are the obvious ones, the Arsenals, the Man Cities, but teams will have a dip. You look at for West Ham, for example, have had a pretty straightforward start to the season. So you'd expect them to pick up the type of points they have. You know, Tottenham have had a pretty comfortable start to the season, and so have a few other teams that are up there as well. I think Villa's run's not been too bad either. So you'd expect some of these teams to be picking up points earlier in the season, but where our fixture list will start easing, and we've got teams where we feel confident that we can get points against, they might start picking up games where they're not, and they're picking up against the big boys. And very, very quickly, this league table can turn around. You know, we've seen it in previous seasons with other teams. You look at the start of the season and everyone's, not great. Look, 12th man have been hammering Newcastle and me because we've had a bad start to the season. And that's fine. But I remember them doing exactly the same to Man United. They ended up finishing 3rd. The season changes very, very quickly, and all you have to do is put a run together of 3, 4, maybe even 5 wins, and the league completely revamps itself. So I'm confident that we can still fight for a Champions League space. There's no doubt about it.
Cool. Right. We're going to ignore ratings because they're going to be pretty poor anyway. So let's just drop them all together from tonight's show. And let's look at solutions and what we could potentially do to mix it up. Now, we will still incorporate discussion points from the Brighton game, but let's look at. So, if we could press the restart button, start with a blank page, and there's no transfer window to save us anymore, or for each week. We have to work with what we got. And let's look at the board. Pete, do you want to bring up a blank sheet and let's go for it? Let's lay out what way we could set things up for the Brentford game. And I suppose the first question would be: are we still going to go 4-3-3? Or do you think it's not what we would do? Well, do you think Eddie would mix that up and change tact?
Well, here's the tactics that we can use. So it's up to us on how we set the team out. So, boys, what are you thinking? I mean, you've got the standard 4-3-3, 4-4-2. You've got the 4-2-3-1, the 4-3-2-1. What are we thinking? What are we thinking? Well, the potential.
The 4-2-3-1 is something that people have been talking about, and I've been talking about as well before. But will he actually go there? That's the question. Will he? I think if he was going to go there, he would have tried it in pre-season and have it as a plan B. Is it? And with so many players probably away on international duty as well, he's not going to have time to work with them, the players he wants on the pitch to go to that no, they're professional footballers. They should be able to adjust. But will he is the question. I
don't know what Chris thinks, but for me, Eddie Howe very much sticks to his guns tactically, and I personally think whoever plays personnel-wise, it will be in a 4-3-3. That's just my opinion. Chris, I don't know if you have a different thought about that.
No, I mean, in fairness, Pete, like me personally, I think this team will benefit from a 4-2-3-1. I really do. Especially, I know some people would say, well, we've only got 2 strikers, and obviously, you know, if Isaac or Wilson are out, you're potentially causing a problem. But in the fact that we've got the likes of, you know, Gordon there, who is potentially the third striker, I think a 4-2-3-1 system would work really well. Yeah.
Hey, somewhere.
Hey,
You
Subs
play.
Subs is back. Yeah. But I do agree with you, Pete. I can't see him swaying from it as much as I want him to switch away from it, because I don't necessarily think we've got the personnel, or the players aren't ready to play in this formation, because, well, we'll talk about it later, but, you know, Joe Linton, Bruno and Tonali, it just doesn't seem to be working at the moment. So I would like to explore the 4-2-3-1, but in fairness, we're probably best setting up on a 4-3-3 on here, because I think that's what Eddie will stick with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's 4-3-3 all around then, just because we don't think Eddie will switch it.
Yeah,
I would say so. I mean, Yano's put a comment in there. He's put, it's okay having a preferred system, but you have to pick your tactics and formation based on player availability in the opposition. And to be fair, we saw that in the US when he did go with a back three against Villa in that first game, and it kind of threw us all as if to say, is this what we're going for now with a defensive three? You know, you're absolutely right, but you look at the players that we've brought in and the players that we've already got, I think they have been recruited for a 4-3-3 now. This is what it's automatically turned up in. So I mean, like, we can remove these, no problem. It just throws players out automatically.
Yeah.
So there's no
Cool.
There's no kind of pre-plan there. But
should we start?
What are you thinking, boys?
Yeah, so we're going to start and go from keeper up. Okay, we're going to say Pope, but I think let's approach the subject of Pope. And I said this in our chat, and I know we said it just before the start of the show as well. There are starting to creep in question marks on Nick Pope. Nick Pope is the king, but I think next summer, I think we should be looking at bringing in a younger keeper that can use his feet better than Nick Pope. We still want the qualities that Nick Pope offers today, but we want the extra ones as well. And Nick Pope is 31, I think, so we have to be starting to think that way anyway, going into the future. But Nick Pope is going to be the number one. I can't see anyone changing that.
Yeah, I'd agree. He's the number one goalkeeper. He's the best goalkeeper at the club. He'll start. But as you mentioned, Daz, and I know, Chris, on a previous show, you mentioned it before about Pope and potentially looking at a goalkeeper next summer. So, boys, from your perspective, I do agree. I think it's not a must-need replacement now, but I think it will be 100% under consideration moving forward, because you look at, you know, Man United have signed Onana and paid the best part of 50 million for him, because he can use his feet. That's his main attribute, and he allows you to play a different style of football. But like Nick Pope will still do a job. He'll still do a fantastic job for us this season, no doubt. Right, defenders, come on, talk to us, boys. Who are we going for?
And we're thinking of Brentford here.
Well, the team up there is Brentford, but for the next game, is that what we're saying, Daz? You think for the next game?
We'll only take it one game at a time, Pete. We won't go too far ahead of ourselves. We won't. Maybe that's what happened to players as well. They got caught up in the Champions League draw, the romance of it, and even the Adidas announcement. But they would have known about that already. But yeah, let's focus on the next game. That's all we can do. I think let's put in our captain. He's definitely. I can't see anyone ousting him in right back position.
Not at the moment.
No. And there is a question there that I know Liam Kennedy and a number of other people, Craig Hope now as well, are asking the kind of question about our transfer business. I'm not taking away from where we are, but the question of what was the idea of focusing on bringing in players for the future, the likes of Tino Livramento, when we don't exactly need him. We could have used the money elsewhere. He's definitely one for the future, and he will be Trippier's replacement in the future. But yeah, focusing on the here and now. But
you know what, Daz? Hope you don't mind. I'm just gonna. I've got a little something to say on this because I was going to say this tonight anyway. It's a little theory that I have with regards to the transfer business, because I think at this stage, looking at the areas that are crying out for that we feel that we now need to kind of replace or bring in as priority. I had this thought. I think it was around the time that Livramento came in, and that you're looking at the signings that we're making, and you're thinking, okay, there's not the right winger there, and there's not the number 6 that we've all talked about. We talked about it all summer. You're thinking, okay, well, why isn't it happening? I think it was Tony B who messaged me this morning. I said that I'd mention it on the show, but honestly, I could be wrong. But this is what I've thought for a while now, in that I genuinely believe that the club have had to weigh up their approach this summer. And what I mean by that is that I think that the owners and Darren Eales and Dan Ashworth have had to go, right, we've only got this pot of money that we can spend. And that's bearing in mind if Alan St-Maximin goes. So do we bolster the squad, which we all said, and I've talked about it personally, that we needed to bolster the squad, because I said at the back end of last season, the current squad that got us to 4th place wasn't big enough and strong enough to deal with 4 competitions. So I think they've gone, right, do we bolster the squad to give us more players capable of spreading ourselves out over 4 competitions, or do we go in and get 2 or 3 players of absolute quality that can improve those positions that we need? Right centre-back, number 6, and right wing. And I genuinely think, like I said, I could be wrong, I genuinely think they've gone to bolster the squad. And there's a reason for that. And this is something that we sometimes forget. And we have to go before Eddie Howe to be able to see why I'm saying this, is that I genuinely think that the club felt that they could get another year out of certain players. Now, an example of that, and this is not me shitting on them, this is me just saying it how I think it is. There are certain players there last season, and maybe for the last 18 months, that have been playing at their absolute maximum. So, in particular, last season, Miguel Almiron's start to the season was outstanding. Scored a crazy amount of goals, but even when he wasn't scoring, his work rate, his connection with Trippier was frightening for teams, and he was playing his absolute maximum. Sean Longstaff, we talked about in Daz early in November, playing at his absolute maximum. Dan Burn, playing at his absolute maximum. Now, what we've come to see over the last season is what we expected this season. We expected the same performances on the same level, week in, week out. But what we're seeing now is those players dropping off. Now, when they drop off, it's a significant damage to the team. We can't afford for these players to drop off. They have to play at their maximum week in, week out. So I think the club have gone, let's get another year out of these boys playing at their maximum and bring players in to bolster the squad. Because if they play at their maximum and we bolster the squad, we're good. We're good to go. And we can do again what we did last season, because we can throw those boys in the Champions League, and then the cup games and wherever, we can bolster and give the likes of Livramento time to settle in, Lewis Hall, and a few of the other boys, and we can settle them into the team. It hasn't worked like that because of the start of the season we've had. We've had to hit the ground running, and we haven't after Villa. And I think it looks like it looks now like not a bad window, because I'm buzzing at the players we've got. I think long term, these players are big players and are going to have a big future at the club. I've got no issue with it. But I think they've had to juggle because they've not got the money there to be able to buy everybody that they wanted. They've had to make a decision. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Because they've had to make that decision. And whatever they've decided, I'd back, because they've given me no reason for me not to back them since I've come into the club. So that's my opinion on that. And what we're seeing now is some of these players that we're talking about dropping off. Dan Burn, for me, and I'm probably shooting ahead here when we're talking about starters, for me, he shouldn't be starting football matches for Newcastle. Not right now. We need to look beyond him now, because he's actually he's becoming a problem. And if people want me to explain that, boys, if you want me to explain that later on when we get to it, quite happy to do so.
Yeah,
I don't know what you think about what I've just said. I don't know what you think about what I've just said. In that opinion, you might disagree, you might agree, but this is something that not just off the back of this result, it's something that I've thought for a while now in terms of the way.
Just to back up what you said, Pete. First of all of us gave the transfer window a rating 9 out of 10. So we are happy with the signings that they brought in. But and linking back to what you were saying, Pete, there is a screenshot around, because I was looking at it this morning, and it's taken from the Amazon documentary. And in it, you can see the players the areas they identified. They had left back, right centre back in green, as in we need to bring someone in there. They had a backup for Bruno identified, and in red they had as in it was further down the list, an attacker to bring that was versatile, that could play in across any of the front three. That's what they had identified. And this is even before we got qualified for Champions League. So it backs up what you're saying, but who they have brought in, we'll get to it in the actual personnel. That's how it's sitting in now.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris?
Do you know what? I'll be honest, this was part of my devil's advocate question I was going to ask, because when I've gone onto Twitter, like you, Pete, I've gone onto Twitter and I've seen all these people saying, have we signed the right players? You know, should we have gone for more impact players, as in immediate impact, or are we building for the future? Now, don't get me wrong, Daz is right. You know, all of those players that we've brought in, I've got no problem with any of those players, I'll be honest. The only flaw I would say in what you've said, Pete, and well, I say flaw, the only thing that I feel quite strongly about in what you've said, which I would question, not saying I disagree with you, because I think you'll agree with me, is that I think the club should have prioritised the number 6. The right centre-back I understand, the right winger I understand, but the number 6, I just don't think there's any excuse for that, because for me, it feels, and again, maybe I'm wrong, it feels like we've brought in a like for Bruno in Tonali.
Yeah.
And we've now got 2 people who can play in that number 8 role. Fantastic players. But we're now struggling because Bruno is not a number 6. And we know Bruno, you know, last season he did a fantastic job for us. I'm not knocking Bruno. I love Bruno. But he's not a number 6, and you know we spoke about it. How many of the transfer shows did we do? And we said, Pete, you kept saying it was a famous quote. Pete kept saying, we need this ball breaker. We need someone who's going to sit in front of the defence, break up any play, and give the ball to the lads who are going to do something with the ball. That's what we needed. And the problem is we've now got a playmaker playing in that number 6, and other teams have spotted that weakness, and they're now just playing through him. And that's all that's happening. And it's really difficult, and it you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. However, if given that option, I probably would have done what the owners would have done in terms of, let's improve. I'm going to use this word I've used for many years now, with the underbelly. Let's improve the players that are below the starting 11, so that when we do hit, you know, hopefully the latter stages of these cup competitions, we can rely on stronger players. So the likes of Lewis Hall is going to be, you know, hopefully the Newcastle left back for the next 5 to 10 years. Exactly the same with Tino Livramento. Harvey Barnes, fantastic player. Anthony Gordon was brought in January. You know, these are all players who are going to come in and they're going to be great for Newcastle. But the problem is, because our trajectory has gone so quick and we're so ahead of our time, it almost feels like we've taken our eye off the ball a touch and we've gone, oh, we'll be fine, we'll be all right. And now we're all panicking a little bit because we're thinking, actually, as Pete rightly says, You know, your Dan Burns, the crest of the wave's gone. Miggy Almiron,
Yeah.
you know, not in the form he was in. And now we've got a midfield full of players who do similar jobs, and we've got a gap, which I'm sure we're going to talk about shortly. And Daz, I was made up that you brought up that screenshot because weirdly, I was watching the documentary the other night and I took a photo of it because I thought, ooh, I've got it on my phone. I've literally just sent it to myself. So I'll bring it up in a sec to show you. Because I too found it interesting, Daz, and it kind of highlights exactly, not to blow smoke up our own backsides, but it kind of highlights what we've been speaking about on Loaders in terms of what we need going forward and what, you know, these are the positions that we kind of want to upgrade on. So it lends itself nicely, actually. But I'll do that in the background while you boys carry on, and I'll let you know once it's in.
So we are kind of saying that they've had to make a decision because they didn't. They were working under financial fair play restrictions, and they've kind of taken a gamble that of getting the same level of performance out of the existing stalwarts of the team that done so well for us last year. And at the moment, it's not working out, but it can change, and it's a long season as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it's the same point with Bruno Guimaraes that Chris says. Look. We've banged the drum for a year now, near to that we need a number 6. We all know we need a number 6, but I think they thought that they could get another year out of Bruno playing number 6, which is why I think they've continued to go with him. Because if they get a number 6 now, then they've got a big question mark of who starts, and Bruno would be up for discussion on that when Sandro Tonali's playing well. And Joe Linton's fully fit and all the rest of it. So I think that maybe will be a conversation for next season because I think we will get that. But it goes back to the point. I think they thought that they could get another season out of certain players. I genuinely thought that. I genuinely think that.
Can I pinch the screen just for 1 second?
Yeah, just put it up, Chris.
Yeah. So I don't know how well you can see that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I took this picture the other night because when I seen it, I thought, oh, that's interesting. Tell you what, let me look at it on my phone because I can zoom in on my phone. Right. So they were saying basically that they've got the 4 keepers there, which was Pope, Dubravka, Darlow, and Gillespie. They said that they needed a +1 in the right back position. They had Trippier and Kraft. Then, with no mention of Manquillo, by the way. Then in the right centre back, they said Charles Lascelles and then a +1. So they were looking at a right centre back, which we knew. They had Botman and Dan Burn. So the idea was to move Burn back to left centre back. So again, that's kind of what we all thought. And then they had Matty Target at left back and Dummett at left back with a +1. Again, the need for the left back. So yes, we filled in the right back position with Livramento, and yes, we filled in the left back position with Lewis Hall. But obviously, we've left the right centre back position. Then, more interestingly, just sitting in the middle there, we've got Bruno Guimaraes as the 6 and the +1. So clearly, they must have been thinking we need a number 6. And Pete's right. They probably thought, oh, okay, well maybe we can do another 6 to 12 months with Bruno in that number 6, and we'll park the number 6 for now. Slightly further forwards, we've got Willock right centre midfield with Longstaff, and then we had left centre midfield Joe Linton with Elliot Anderson. On the left wing, we had Anthony Gordon, St. Maximin, and Matt Ritchie. I'm very surprised Matt Ritchie's in there, but that's by the by. Interestingly, they're saying about him being left winger rather than left back, which is probably better. And then on the right, they had Miggy Almiron and Jacob Murphy on the right wing. Then there's up front, there's Alexander Isak, Callum Wilson, and then a +1 in orange. Now, whether that's because it was highlighted and that's what they were talking about at the time.
No, Chris. The legend up of the top says for green. It says it says
sorry, Daz. It says
priority position
in blue, and in orange it was secondary. So they've said the third striker is the secondary priority. So they've actually said, we're not desperate for the striker. Then based on that, but interesting to see the gaps. So it's right back, right centre back, left back, and a number 6. Yet somehow, obviously, St. Maximin's left. We've brought in Anthony Gordon, who they maybe see as cover for the forward, for the right wing, for the left wing. I can have that. No, I'm saying so. Barnes is the
Oh,
left wing cover, but then Gordon can be the cover for anywhere across the front three. Gordon can basically
okay.
be cover for all of them. So I get why they brought him in January. It makes sense, but you can clearly see there was concerns in the number 6 and the right back, right centre back, left back. Now we've sorted 2 of them out, but you could argue 2 of the most important are the number 6 and the right centre back. But boys, tell me
Yeah.
your thoughts on that. I've just read through it anyway. What
My-
you know? I'm assuming you've seen this picture before, but what were your thoughts?
Yeah, my just one kind of question, I suppose, and just in the +1 under Bruno, does Eddie Howe want to play with a defensive midfielder? You know, he want, or does he want to play with someone that's creative? Because in having Bruno and that +1 turned out to be Tonali that they brought in, they don't have that ball breaker, as Pete described before, that David Bally that from the past. They don't have someone like that. And does Eddie Howe want a player like that in his team? Because it's becoming pretty obvious he needs one.
Yeah. It's interesting because Yano's put that a couple of times in the chat now. He's saying, he's mentioned a couple of times, you know, Eddie Howe doesn't want a number 6. It'd be interesting to see why he thinks that, because it's an interesting question, Yano, or interesting comment that you've made. You know, so why do you think he doesn't want a number 6? I've said before, boys, and to be fair, you look at the way the team set out, and you look like there is a defensive midfielder, a number 6 position there, because they put it in there. They put it in the setup. If you didn't want number 6, they wouldn't be in the setup, but they are specialised positions. Now, you could argue that Bruno Guimaraes is there. You could argue that +1 is Sandro Tonali. Yeah. And you could argue that they did get their number 6
long-term
alternative, and that they've got 2 to choose from. I would argue that you've probably got 2 number 8s there. I think the thing that I don't understand is I actually think Sandro Tonali's attributes are better suited to number 6 than Bruno Guimaraes. I think both of them are number 8s, but I think he's better suited in that position. And I'll talk about why. I've got an example, one of the imageries, one of the movements for one of the goals on last night, and I'll show it at some point. But I genuinely think that here's one. Why couldn't we? Why couldn't we have gone with? Okay. And look, I'm really happy with Harvey Barnes. I think he'll be quality. I think he just needs games, and I think he'll tear it up starting regularly for Newcastle. But who's to say St. Maximin could have gone? We could have got a specialised number 6 and put Joe Linton left wing. Yeah. So if you think about it, Joe Linton played probably his best football last season off the left. And I don't know if you saw, I think we talked about it on the show before away days about that. I mentioned about Joe Linton with that left wing inside run that Shaw plays the ball, and he scored a few goals from it last season. Yes, Shaw plays that long ping direct diagonal, and Joe Linton, he did that on Saturday, and it nearly came off. And he did it from the midfield 3. And that's what I was asking. Could he make that run? And he did. He's the only player on that left-hand side that can make that run. And he made it, and it just didn't sit right. I think he tried to bring it down on his chest. But who's to say they couldn't bring that as an option? They could have brought that as an option instead. I do think Joe Linton on the left-hand side is a conversation at some point this season. I genuinely think. But look,
Do you think when Willock and Longstaff come back, Pete, that Joe Linton is going to be seen more on the left-hand side, and that maybe we see Gordon come in permanently then for maybe Miggy on the right-hand side?
I think that wasn't the plan, but I would be shocked to think if it's now not the plan. I think that would be their idea moving forward. I genuinely do, and I think moving forward, I actually do think that we miss Joe Willock's energy, his ability to carry the ball quite far forward, his box-to-box ability to get back and forth, runs himself into the ground. I do think there's an element of that we miss, and it's a shame that he's going to be out for another 6 weeks. because I do think that is an element of his game is an element of the midfield that's missing right now. That high press intensity, willing to dig in. He's done it in big moments last season. Really, really good season for Joe Willock. Yeah.
Would you play? And this is to you and Daz. Would you play Longstaff over Bruno in the 6?
What do you think, Daz?
I think we're going to get onto it. We'll go back to the board where we have to make decisions. Let's bring back the board. Go back to the board.
Bring it on.
Let's get the board.
Right.
Sorry,
it'll be Monday.
Yeah, we're still at trips, man.
The team will be out for Brentford. We'll be behind the times.
Are we saying Botman-Shaw, or are we looking at an alternative? We're assuming that Botman's going to be fit because he only just missed out this game.
I think we have to go Botman-Shaw on the assumption.
But
on the assumption.
Shaw, yeah, on the assumption. But the other thing about Shaw is he to me he just, okay, maybe it was an injury thing, I'm not so sure, but he just kind of in some ways kind of half gave up when
like he down
the
tools.
second goal he just that attempted block of the third goal. But look, he has I even said at one stage he was potentially one of the players of the season for us last season. So
yeah, he was.
We know that they are looking at a replacement because it was in that picture that Chris put up. So and that's what we were concentrating ourselves towards at the end of the window. So it's going to come, but yeah.
And let's be honest, Daz. Let's be honest. If we're not putting Shaw right centre back, who are we putting there? Because I'm assuming we're not all queuing up to put Jamal Lascelles there. I'm assuming. I'm not. This isn't a let's knock Jamal Lascelles, but I don't think he's the answer. Is what I'm saying.
No. Yeah.
Depends on the question, Chris. But no, he's not the answer.
Yes.
Would I have started him yesterday? 100%. I would have started him ahead of Burn, in my opinion. I think they've gone for.
Oh, it's centre back. You mean?
Yeah,
as in left centre back.
I would have started him left centre back, or maybe Shaw. Shaw can play left. He's good on the ball.
Put Shaw left. Yeah,
I would have, and this is not just because of the result. I would have started with Lascelles personally, but you just know he's going to go with Burn because of the left foot, right foot. Kind of, it's the dynamics of the game. It's the stability of the team.
I was shocked, Pete. I was shocked how uncomfortable Dan Burn looked throughout that game. He just didn't. But I, given the fact that he, yes, I know he's played left back at Brighton, and yes, I know he's very accomplished, and he's played the whole season for us at left back last season. But I didn't think he looked like a left back playing centre back. And considering he is a natural centre back, I wasn't expecting him to just completely. I wasn't expecting him to look like a fish out of water. And to me, he looks like he'd never played there before. You may as well have stuck Joe Linton centre back. It looked like you'd stuck somebody who's never played there before. He just looked nervous as hell. And we saw that, didn't we? Was it the third goal where him and Shaw, Ferguson had the ball and him and Shaw just backed away from him? And I thought, what was going on? Like what is that?
That's the clip I'll show you in a sec. That's the animation I'll show you in a sec. How that goal comes about and the movement of certain players. But you're right. I wasn't surprised personally. Up until that Brighton game, there was only one goal that Dan Burn wasn't responsible for, in my opinion, and it was the Botman one, the first one that came off Botman and Nunes went through. That's the only goal that Burn wasn't responsible for. And yes, there was a couple that he wasn't responsible for yesterday, but then you've got that goal from Aaron Ferguson that was poor. That was poor. It was poor defensive mistakes. And when you've got a player that is being targeted right now, Dan Burn has been targeted by every team we've played against this season, and I've seen it every game, and it's obvious now that they are targeting him. He is the weak link in our team, and that's why I say he cannot play, because teams are targeting him in order to get through our team and to get opportunities. And we need to take him out the firing line for more than anything else. And this is not me shitting on Dan Burn. He's been superb for us. I think he would. This is how he's played and what he's done for the club since he signed. I think he's probably beyond his wildest dreams. But it comes a point where we have to say, okay, Let's take him out the firing line now, and let's look at something else, someone else. And it's not to say he won't get back in the team, but he just needs a little bit of time out to kind of to give someone else an opportunity. That's my.
Are we saying then that we never want to see Dan Burn playing centre back for us again, and even to the as far as if Botman wasn't fully fit for the next game or the next couple of games, that we'd even consider bringing in Jamal Lascelles in there and moving Char up on the left, and then that the only way that Dan Burn is getting back into the team in some capacity is at a left back.
I'd have no problem with him playing centre back or left back in a lower league cup game. I'd have no problem with that. Yeah. But certainly for a high level Premier League game, away to Brighton. Brighton now, let's be honest, lads, Brighton now are a top 8 club, and they've got some fantastic players. And I think Dan Burn gets found out. If we were playing Sheffield United at home yesterday, we'd have probably got away with that. He'd have been fine. But we're coming up against a fantastic, Everton, We're coming up against. I'd saying that I think that Beto would have given him a run for his money. He has a really good game against Sheffield United. Just on a side note, but no, I think if you're coming up against any kind of pace, any kind of trickery, any kind of skill, I think Dan Burn gets found out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's move to left back.
What are we saying, boys?
I want to see Lewis Hall. I want to see Lewis
Hall as well.
Yeah, target Lewis Hall, Dan Burn. I'm not going to disagree. He's the guy I want to see. Lewis Hall. Eddie Howe said in his presser after the game that he's getting up to speed, which is why he's not really been involved. Building his fitness, blah blah blah, this, that, and the other. He's got 2 weeks now to get him ready, fit and ready. Although I do believe he's playing with the under-19s or the under-20s for England, so you might not actually get to see a lot of him, but he'll play football, which is what we want to see. So he'll get to play a lot of football. So hopefully he'll come back and he'll be part of the team. Perfect game. St James's Park, Brentford, perfect opportunity to get him in and starting for Newcastle. Target, not for me. I'd have sold him if it was me. I'd have sold him in this window, just gone. He wanted to leave the club. As far as reports are concerned, he has to leave. He doesn't want to be at the club, and he's got history with that previous clubs.
Does that tell you, Pete, that if Eddie Howe wanted him to stay in terms of left back, and obviously we've seen the image, does that tell you, because it indicated to me that might be the last we see of Dan Burn at left back? In terms of, we've brought in Lewis Hall, he's going to be the number one, you'd hope, at left back. But is that Eddie Howe thinking, do you know what? If we need a left back replacement, if Lewis Hall's out, I'm playing Matty Target, and Dan Burn is going to be the backup to Botman if Sven Botman's out?
Not yet. I still think Dan Burn's got an opportunity to play ahead of Matt Target. But I think once Lewis Hall starts to play for Newcastle, I think he'll show us what he's all about, and I think it'll be very hard to dislodge him. Once he starts getting up to speed and playing, I think Dan Burn will be the backup option because of his leadership and his experience. He has that ahead of Matt Target. So I actually think Matt Target would become a third choice. He'll become the Jamal Lewis of the squad, effectively. Which is why
it shows you what he thinks of Matty. It shows you what he thinks of Paul Dummett, though, doesn't it? Really, because then you've got Paul Dummett as the left back option as well. So you basically keep a Matty Target as your third choice left back. When really, some may argue you could have just let him go even till January and just said, "All right, let him go till January," and then if we need to pull him back or we need to look for another left back, then let's do it, kind of thing. So the fact that he's kept him, that was the reason I asked you, because I thought it feels like Matty Target's got a role to play in this team. That's just how I see it.
one sec. The offers though that I heard that were coming in for Matt Target though were loan offers, rather than a full transfers. So if it was the thing where we're getting a full a transfer free up front or whatever, then we would have reinvested that and gone and got our potentially got our right centre back.
Well, it's interesting because there's the comment in the chat saying Trippier for Prime Minister saying nobody's paying 100k a week for Matt Target. I beg to differ, because there's a team out there that's paying 100 grand a week for both Wood and Shelby, and it's Nottingham Forest, and they came in for him. They were one of the teams. There was Forest and Fulham that came in for Matt Target. So I would beg to differ.
And they lost Red and Lodi, didn't they?
Yeah. So I think they would have paid his wages. Certainly, I think they would have paid probably 80-90% of his wages, which I'd be snapping their hand off for that, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But Lewis Hall, boys, we've gone for it. Now it's the big one.
Well, one sec, Pete.
Super chat received.
Ooh.
Craig Lee. Pause for a moment. It was similar 12 months ago. I'm going to assume that we're talking about Matt Target. There, or am I wrong, Craig Lee? What do you think Craig Lee means there, lads? It was similar 12 months ago.
He was asking to leave 12 months ago. He don't just sign permanently, I think.
Craig, expand on that, mate. Expand on that. Let us know what you mean.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Before he replies, we want to whip through this midfield. I don't know if
we do. And just remind people to hit that like button as well, because we forgot to say it at the start. Hit that like button. I know Lisa and a few more have been saying it in the chat. Smash that like button as well. Thank you very much.
I'm just thinking, boys, and just while I put this on because I love it, I'm just thinking, do we go to the strike force? Because I have a feeling we're going to whiz through the strike force. The midfield, I think, might need a little bit more TLC. I don't know what you guys think, but
I mean, I'll do whatever you want to do, boys. Up to you.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we'll go for the front three. So if we start with, let's start with the left-hand side. Left-hand side of the front
to make
three.
it easy.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. No. What we're going to do? Let's start with the striker. Let's start with the striker first. Who we going up top with this? Who are we going up top for Brentford?
I'm still going Isaac. I know Wilson came on.
Go Isaac.
But Callum Wilson is doing well coming off the bench. It's so.
Are we ruling him out, Daz, on the left?
Isaac, we have too many players that can play on the left. Look, in another alternative, if we'd gone for the 4-2-3-1, I could have considered him behind, like playing like in a number 10 role. Then that would have suited him. But with Wilson up front. But no, I Isaac.
I agree. I'd have Isaac through the middle.
Have you got the super chat again?
I have it there. There it is.
Super chat received.
Craig Lee. We missed Willock's legs stretching the game. So was that?
Sorry, Craig. I didn't mean Craig yet. The super chat again, by the way. Just a normal chat. We'll
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Top man. Says we missed Willock's leg stretching the game.
We do.
Boys, do you agree with that?
Oh, we do. Absolutely. Someone to just get the ball and take us up 15, 20, 30 yards further up the pitch at pace. I agree. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, 100%. Right, you boys going Isaac?
Yeah, we've got to go Isaac through the middle.
What about you, Pete?
You having that, Pete?
I'm not going to lie. I'd have gone Callum Wilson.
Ooh.
Now you know how. You know how much I love Isaac, and he is our number one striker, 110%. But you can't keep missing the chances he's missing.
No.
And then when Wilson puts the ball in the net, you can't then say he doesn't deserve an opportunity to start. It's a competition game, and Isaac needs to know. Isak was scoring these goals because he was on the bench, coming off the bench and having to make a difference. So he was coming off and doing this stuff, and then he eventually started, and he knew he had to score the goals to keep his place. Now he's holding the mantle as a number one striker when it was Wilson before last season. So if Isak's not scoring the goals, it should be, if Wilson's coming on and bagging the goals and making a difference, we go with Wilson. Now there are some games where I would change that and go, you know what, Isak needs to play. Certain games where I go with Isak regardless because he's our number one striker. But Brentford at home, someone like Wilson hungry to make a difference. Yeah. Wilson starting, I think will kick Wilson up the backside to say, you want your place, keep it, the goals that are going to win us the game. But equally, it's going to kick Isak up the arse to say, if you're not putting the ball in the net and you're missing simple chances, I'm sorry, that first one where he was put through after about a minute.
Yeah, it's poor.
He took 3 touches before he pulled the trigger. The guy should have took 1 touch, bang, and he'd have bagged it. And maybe I'm being harsh with him with that, but when you've got a striker like Callum Wilson breathing down your neck, you have to put the ball in the net. It's as simple as that. And when you're not, I think he needs to kick up the arse and say, you're not doing it. You're not putting the ball in the net. You're outside the box play. Superb, brilliant. Links the play, does all that good stuff. If you're not putting the ball in the net, we'll put a striker on that does. And I think that would be the best. I think that would actually be the best thing for both of them, because I think it would almost raise their games, both of them.
Yeah,
Wilson needs to keep his spot. Isak wants his spot back. They're both fighting. I wouldn't be surprised if that was to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if both of them bag against Brentford.
You know what? Let's be fair here, Dad. Should we put Wilson up? Because I agree with what Pete's saying. And in fairness, Wilson, I know we probably wouldn't even touch on it. Wilson's finish was very nice against Brighton as well. He took that really well.
The other thing, Chris, is I'm just thinking back to, remember the game against Brentford last season where we went 1-0 down, and then Eddie brought on Wilson and working with Isak then, and they combined together.
That was the first game he did it, wasn't it, Daz? That was the first
it was the first game, because it was in the it's in the documentary. That game,
that's right. Yeah.
I'm okay with starting Wilson, and I can see the advantage of trying to play them off each other as well. Getting the best.
We've got to shake it up.
I wasn't doing this to change your minds, boys, but
that
was always going to be my decision. That was just kind of my mindset.
Yeah, it's valid.
Okay. Right, left wing, boys, what we go for? We've got the options: Joe Linton, Gordon, Harvey Barnes is in here somewhere across the line. Number 15 somewhere. There he is up the top here. Who are we going for? Left wing.
Well, if Joe Linton isn't in our midfield, he's on the left wing. But
good point.
But I do like what Gordon can do, and we haven't seen what Barnes can do.
I'll jump in. I would pick Barnes.
Okay.
Barnes.
What are you going for, Daz? You agree?
And we can jiggle this round as well, can't we?
Yeah, let's go Barnes. Let's go for Barnes for now. We can fight it out later.
And then right wing, we've got Miggy, Murphy, potentially Gordon to play on the right. What do we think?
I go Gordon then.
Same.
But you remember that in the game, he had a shot towards the second half of the game. He really should have done a better.
I remember.
Be more accurate on that one. That was poor. It was on the right inside. But yeah, no, I'd try him on the right.
Yeah.
I think we've got to get Harvey Barnes in the starting 11. I really do.
I agree.
Really do.
I agree.
Why do we buy him otherwise?
Exactly.
And Barnes and Wilson have already got a good link up anyway, so that could potentially work. Right, boys, midfield 3 and where we're going to put them. So I'm going to throw you at it, and I'm going to ask for your holding midfielder. I'm not going to say number 6, but your holding midfielder. Who is your holding midfielder in this midfield 3? Who are we going for? And people in the chat, put who you think you're going for on that.
I think I tried Tonali in there. Originally, when I saw Tonali, I thought he was a good number 6, but was more than that. This is like 2 years before we actually signed him, so I would put Tonali in there.
Okay.
And this is purely, Pete, what we would do, isn't it?
Yeah. Just
yeah,
our
well, in that case, I would agree with Daz. I don't think he'll do it, as in Eddie Howe, but I would try Bruno in the 6.
Bruno,
Tonali.
Sorry, Tonali.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think we're all agreeing that it's not working with Bruno in the 6.
No.
I'll be honest with you. I toyed with having Sean Longstaff as number 6.
Yeah.
I toyed with it.
Yeah.
I am. I know Richie noticed it as well because he put it in the chat during the match last night. But there was one moment in the game where they broke on us. It didn't result to a goal, and it cut straight to Trippier. And Trippier turns round and goes straight to Bruno and points at him and goes, "You need to play here." And Bruno's kind of turning around as if to say, "Well, I was here," and he goes, "No, you need to sit here.
You're the 6.
You are here." And it will go into what I'm going to show you, the little animation in a second about what Bruno does, which the way in which Bruno vacates the space. But we need someone to sit in there and dictate the play, but sit and not roam and not end up here or pressing high up here, which vacates a space in and around here. We need someone to sit. And
the furthest you want him up, Pete, is the halfway line. Furthest you want him up to the halfway line, because if they break, he's there ready.
Honestly, I'll show you know what, I'm gonna stop it here, but I'm gonna show you exactly where he should be playing, in my opinion. And you're right. You're almost right to the point, Chris, in where he should be playing. But that's the number 6, boys. Other 2, who are the number 8s and where?
Just, and I see someone Ian has put in the chat as well. Something that I was saying in our chat today is that there was a suggestion on Twitter as well that Lewis Hall could potentially play that number 6 position. Now we need a left back because we've got no. Well, you're going back to target then again. But would you consider that? I think I'd keep him on see what he can do on left back position first. But
sorry, Dad. I was just laughing at Dad's comment. They kept saying 6. His dog thing. What the hell is going on? Let us know your dog's name. I'll say your dog's name and apologise. Dad, that was funny. But yeah.
But no, I think it's a great point you make, Daz, because obviously people online are saying about Lewis Hall, and apparently he's played in an 8, he's played in the sitting role. My only concern with putting Hall in now is because you're really putting him in the fray, and I think what Pete said earlier was right in terms of you need someone to be disciplined, and you need someone who kind of has got the maturity. And I'm not knocking his age or anything, but when I say maturity, I don't mean he's great age. I don't mean just age. I mean in terms of his football knowledge. Tonali has played in some of the biggest games that any footballer can play in, and I think if you say to him, "Listen, he's got to do right by the team," and I don't think he would, get over exuberant and start, running around like a lunatic. Whereas, Lewis Hall will be keen to, stamp his mark on the team and do his best and whatnot, but he may not have the, the experience within the game to play such a disciplined role. And I suppose that's why I agree with you, Daz, when you said about Tonali playing in the 6, because I did think that about Longstaff, but I don't know with Longstaff. I just don't know whether. I think he's got the skills and he's got the capability to play as a 6, but I don't know whether he's got the discipline to do it. Whereas I think Tonali has, and it's about us, maybe, or I say us, it's about Eddie, getting that into him and saying, "You need to do a job for the team. I need you here, and I need you to do this job," and then maybe let Bruno or whoever, venture further forwards, and the responsibility isn't on their heads, because at the minute it's not working with Bruno.
Okay, let's go for the other 2.
Okay.
Great points, boys. Where we're going? Left or right? Okay, let's say right. Who are we playing on the right?
I think it could be time to bring in Longstaff. I know it's a big call because then who are you leaving out, Bruno or Big Joe? But
So the options you've got, Elliot Anderson, who from the image that you put up, Chris, and as you mentioned it about watching it on the dock, he clearly they clearly have Anderson as part of the midfield three, not
In the
out
left.
right left, which everyone thought he was going to play. So you've got Elliot Anderson as an option, Longstaff, Bruno, Joe Linton. Who we thinking? Joe Willock's obviously injured. But...
On the left of the central midfield, I still think I'd pick Joe. I think I feel like not to say he's undroppable, but I feel like when he's not in the team, we miss him. So for me, I would have Joe Linton left centre mid personally.
And then we're also assuming that he gets fully fit from his whatever is wrong with him as well.
Yeah.
That's important for me, Daz, because Joe Linton was not good yesterday. Oh. And it is very clear that he was at 70% fit. Like his recovery runs were non-existent. It felt like he was running through treacle. Like he just couldn't move the way he wanted.
And that's what he brings. That's what he brings to. That's his strength. That's what he brings to the table.
Yeah. That's his game. That's why we love him. So if he can't do it, don't play him.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know when we have 11 players on the pitch, we could look at this, but you could also look at having Bruno and Longstaff there in the middle, and taking Barnes off and putting Joe Linton out on the left wing. But let's finish it out first.
I'll put Joe there because I'm assuming we're okay with that. Tell me if I'm wrong. But then
okay for now.
Okay for now, fine. And then it's the right hand side. So, as you mentioned, Sean Longstaff.
Yeah, it's all the talk of all the running he does, but maybe having Tonali in there will counteract what we have been missing. So maybe it's Bruno that will. I don't want to drop Bruno from our team, but and I'm not going to. So I would, if Joe Linton is sitting there, I'd put Bruno there.
There's our Rich. That's what Rich is saying. Richard played Tonali in the six for now. Remember when he signed, Eddie Howe said that Tonali was the one midfielder he'd ever seen who was tactically amazing and that he would be able to implement the game plan that Eddie Howe wants.
Good.
That's why I put him in the six, because he can play that role. He's got the attributes to play a six and an 8. So, yeah.
I'm torn right centre mid. I'm torn between Sean Longstaff and Bruno. I'll be honest. Only because part of me feels a bit like what you were saying before, Pete, about Wilson and Isak. Is it a case of, dare I say it, but, do certain players, and I'm not just saying this about Bruno, do certain players think, oh, well, I'm playing next week? Yeah. Would that really shake things up a little bit? Mm-hmm. And, if Bruno is carrying something, or if Bruno, needs a little bit, more time to kind of get back up to speed. We've been speaking about this, boys, for the last couple of weeks, and even the back end of the season. And I know we got a few pelters for it, saying that, Bruno's not been that great. And, there are some apologists out there who will, say, oh, Bruno's brilliant, ball that. And I don't, as a player, as a person, Bruno's fantastic. Bruno on form is brilliant and could get into the first name Premier League side. Yeah. Any Premier League side. But at this present moment, we're not seeing that Bruno. Would we see him in this new number 8 role on the right side of midfield? Yeah. Or do we go with Sean Longstaff, who, by the way, Sean Longstaff didn't have the best of games yesterday either. But, I don't know, because Sean Longstaff's come on the last couple of times, hasn't he? And he's not looked great. He's really, really not looked great. So you could argue that maybe now wouldn't be a good time to bring on Sean Longstaff and start him in a game. I don't know. Pete, what would you do?
I would be saying, for me, I would be choosing Bruno Guimaraes. But I would be choosing him with the caveat that you are now playing in the position you want to play. Yeah. So as you can do the business. And if you can't, then and we have another struggle and we don't have another good game, at that point, I would be then asking a question and saying, right, is there someone else in the team that could come in now? Yano's put a question in, I think, to you, Chris, saying,
Yeah.
if Longstaff's the question, it's or if it is the answer, it's a trick question or something along those lines. I can't see the comment because I've got the tactics, but yeah, and maybe you're right to a point, but there was people hammering Sean Longstaff last season, but he was doing the job week in, week out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
who's to say that? Now, what I will say with that is that Sean Longstaff doesn't look fit. But equally, you get fit by playing games.
Yeah.
So maybe he needs regular games to get his fitness back up to top tier level that it was last season for him to be able to show his business. So I don't know. Maybe the 2 weeks will be good for him to get himself ready to start. But I would go with Bruno Guimaraes with the caveat that now you're playing number 8, do the business, because time and time again, he vacates his position and the opposition team exploit the space that he leaves. And it has to stop. So what we're saying, boys? Are we saying
Bruno in?
Bruno?
Yeah, put Bruno in.
Bruno in.
Bruno in, and he's yeah. And then you're right, Pete. He's told, listen, you're playing in the role that you preferred. He can link up with Gordon, link up with Trippier. It might be. Everyone might go. It might be a light bulb moment. Everyone goes, "Oh bloody hell, Bruno's back," because he's not playing in that 6.
Yeah, definitely. So look, boys, we have our team, and now it's for me. It's about the way we play, and the way we play are the triangles. So for me, our starting positions, particularly when attacking a team, should be this. And it goes back to the point that I mentioned, is that against Liverpool, this was effectively the team, but we were like this. Our number 6 needs to be within the centre circle, holding the position here, and almost playing within the triangles. And the triangles are crucial. You look at the pitch, and I'll try and see. Hold on a second, get out of this. I'll try and see if I can get out of this. Let me get back to the menu and the tools. So you can see the triangles here. Oh, no, that's not right.
It's hard to get used to that new football manager.
I know, mate. I tell you. It's not working. Anyway, what you'll see here are the triangles in this area. Here, here, and here. Here, here, and here. You guys would have seen that Bruno Guimaraes, the little 1-2 with Miggy into these areas here, and the triangles here, here, and here. This is how we play football. Tight possession, one-touch football within the areas. Tonali looking for the space and the opportunity on the ball, and then allowing to dictate the play elsewhere. Joe Linton coming into this space, making the runs into the middle like we talked about. So we want to be seeing him running into that space like we normally do. We see Shaw playing that long ball into there. That's what we want to see. We want to see that crossover from happening. We haven't seen it enough. It's not good enough at the moment because we're not seeing players making forward runs. So then we look at Callum Wilson, and Callum Wilson is kind of on his own at the moment. He's doing his own thing. He's on his own. This is where he needs to connect. He needs to connect, running the channels in and around here. He does it really well with Harvey Barnes. Those two have connected really well. I think he'd build up a really good connection with Gordon because Gordon is a simple winger. Sorry, Daz.
He can cross it.
He can cross
like
it.
Miggy.
He's a simple winger. So he gets the ball, he runs direct, he gets the ball into the box. What we see time and time again from, and I would like to use the thing, but it's not working. What we see from Miggy is it'll make the run, and then he'll come back again, and then he'll play it across, and then he'll play it across and back, and it's just all the same. It's all the same. Sorry, that was Chris.
I was saying you lose the moment because by the time he cuts in, all the players have got back and they know what's going to happen.
How many times did that happen in the game last time against Brighton and against Man City and against Liverpool? The amount of times he makes the right run and then he loses the moment. As you've said, you're absolutely right, and it needs to stop. But these triangles are crucial, and we need to get them working again.
And if you're just looking at those three triangles in isolation, they look quality as well. Like
Strong triangles.
you could see them. It sounds weird. We're talking about triangles, jingle jangle. But but yeah, it makes sense, this setup, and it's all, the key point is Hall coming in at left back and Tonali in our number 6, and Gordon moving out to the right and seeing, because we know Barnes loves that 1-2. So I think that this is a good suggestion.
Yeah, and you know what? Yano puts 3 triangles. All that's missing is Lascelles and Burns for that John Smith touch. Have it, and you're absolutely right. And this is why this team is better equipped to play Eddie Howe football, because you look at every single one of these right here: Botman, Shaw, Tonali, all comfortable with the ball, all know how to play football, all good in tight spaces, passing the ball. Lewis Hall, we know, is good on the ball. Harvey Barnes, we know, is good on the ball. I have a slight question mark with Joe Linton. I think his ball distribution is not great, but he is good enough to continue the links. Gomes, Trippier, Gordon. Sorry, Daz.
I was just going to say, Pete, the thing with Joe Linton as well, though, he's very good at shielding. I agree with you. He'll hold the ball. Sometimes his first touch isn't the best, or sometimes, his distribution isn't the best. But because of that strength and that power and that pace, he gets himself out of tricky situations. So he uses those attributes to get him out of trouble. If he was only slight and got knocked off the ball easily, he wouldn't make it, because he'd get found out far too often. Sorry, carry on, Pete.
No, I agree. I agree. So that's why you get away with, and you're quite happy with still having him in the team, because of what he gives you on and off the ball. But we know these 3 are good with the ball. I would say Wilson's probably less like confident on the ball at his feet in relation to Alexander Isak. But what I would say, see if I can come out of here for a second. What I would say is that from a Newcastle point of view, is that with Alexander Isak, what he is really good at, in comparison to Wilson, is linking the play. So he will drift into the channels, which allows the likes of Joe Linton to run into the space. And simple this, and the same this way. So what you see is a number 8 being able to run into those positions and exploit the space. What you find with Callum Wilson is that Callum Wilson stays. He's always central. He's always the man. Okay. So Pope can pump that ball up here, and he'll be there to win the ball. And he'll battle with the ball, and he'll get something, whether it's a free kick or he'll hold on to the ball and link the play. He's an old school striker, and he links that really, really well. So although Wilson starting, he does offer something different, which I think against Brentford could be really useful, particularly getting us up the pitch and holding the ball high up the pitch, which I think is an element of Isak's game that he needs to improve on. I think the ball comes back to the defence too quickly. When the ball gets pumped up, he doesn't hold on to it. He doesn't get a flick on. He's not strong enough at times to hold off those big, solid centre-backs, but Wilson is. And this is why, in my thinking, and your boys' thinking, this is why Wilson probably would be a good option. Now, he may not start, but this is what we think. But these triangles are crucial. The links here, this is where Bruno had its success last season. Miggy making those runs, a little 1-2s into these little spaces here. Can he produce that quality of football that he was doing last season? Can Joe Linton make those runs in and behind? Can Harvey Barnes use his ability to come in, cut in on the inside, and be putting the ball into the far corner? That's what we want to be seeing. And if it happens, what we want to be seeing is this. Either this and the overlap with Joe Linton, or this. And we're getting Lewis, who can cross the ball, get into those wide areas. And then you've got Barnes, you've got Wilson, you've got Gordon. I want to be seeing Joe Linton in and around here, Bruno in and around here. And all of a sudden, that one outlet that you've got with Hall being able to whip the ball in, you've got, 5 players coming in, Trippier in and around this area, and it'll be vice versa.
And you've got to have Tonali sitting there should
going
they
nowhere.
break us on the counter.
Exactly, Chris. And that is the key. He has to sit. So that's why we've talked about all of these players in these positions, and we haven't talked about the defence. So we've talked about Lewis Hall, Trippier, all these boys here. These boys should be winning the game for us. These 6-7 players should be winning the game for us. These 3 should be holding the fort and keeping things solid. That is how Newcastle United last season won the game. They won games last season doing this, is by keeping it solid here. And that for me is the bread and butter for Newcastle. These 7 winners the game.
Garlic bread with the pizza. Sorry, there's a comment about pizza. They're looking at triangles and they're getting hungry.
Oh. Domino's. Hey, Domino's, if you're watching, give us a call. Happy for a new sponsor. We'll promote the shit out of you, no doubt.
Boys, I'm really sorry. I'm gonna have to shoot. But Pete, I'm gonna watch this back because I want to see. No, I'm not having pizza, unfortunately. I'm gonna watch this back because I want to see this graphic that you've done as well, Pete. So I am gonna love you and leave you, but I will tune in later to catch up.
No worries, fella.
Okay.
All right, boys.
You take care, mate. I'm gonna pop it up in just a second, so I'll let you know.
Cool.
You'll be able to see it, mate.
Take care, boys. See you later. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Top man.
See you there, Chris.
But yeah, I don't know if you want me to drop it up now, Daz.
Yeah, go for it, Pete. See how this works, and then go for it. While you're doing that, it might take a second. I'm going to shout out to the sponsors because we'll have that done then. You'll probably have to work away in the background. So shout out to theradiatorshed.com, and you know at this stage as we put the team in jail, and that's not a bad place for them after the performance at the weekend. But if you know by now, the fabulous radiators are available via Russ in the Radiator Shed, and also shout out to H2O Bathroom Design Co., the Northeast's largest supplier of Velcro and bathroomware. Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established, run by the family. Get down to the showroom on 11th Avenue, Team Valley Estate, Gateshead. And here are some of the bathrooms that are there in that showroom. So check those out if you are in the market for a new bathroom. And yeah, mention Loaded as well. You get the Loaded discount. Oh, look, it's Brighton have just been added to the mix.
Yes, so this is just a little something that I put in there earlier. We talk about the number 6 position, and I was talking about Bruno Guimaraes. There's a few others, but we haven't got time for it tonight. I'll put them up on another when we've got another opportunity. But what I will say is that, and I'll play it, and I'll play it at a slower speed for now, and then I'll quicken it up. But this is almost what happened for the goal, for Ferguson's goal. I think it was his second. Yeah, it was his second goal that he scored. And so at the point in which I'm starting it, Bruno Guimaraes, who should be in this number 6 position here, has vacated his position to press. I think it was Billy Gilmore. It's either Gilmore or Gross, but I think it's Billy Gilmore on the halfway line. This is where everyone was set at this point. And you can already see that he's vacated his position in number 6 to go and press that ball high. And he does it all the time. Now, whether it's a tactic or not that Eddie Howe wants, I don't know. But he vacates his space when he does it. And this is what happens on the back of it. So Billy Gilmore wins the ball into Ferguson, and the ball is in the net. Now, there's a few things that go wrong with that. And I'll just play it again. So first of all, Bruno is out of position. So where you see Ferguson pick the ball is exactly where Bruno Guimaraes should be. And what you've got is Anderson and Longstaff on either side of the midfield that are now having to retreat in order to cover his space. He's not communicated with them that he's going to press the ball. He's just done it. And now they've been left open. Now, what you'll see now is in reference to Dan Burney. You'd have seen it because you'd have watched it back, or whether you haven't watched it back, you will see it here. Just look at what happens. And it's only a really kind of short clip, but just look at the response to, firstly, Bruno Guimaraes as the ball goes into the net. So you can see the ball go into the net. Now you can see where Billy Gilmore now is, where Ferguson is, where the midfielders are Anderson and Longstaff, and where Bruno Guimaraes is. What
Yeah.
does feel like a
He's,
teacher now,
he's
but what do you
yeah.
notice?
Please, sir. He's on the wrong side of the triangle. He's that triangle is pointing the wrong way. He should be at the bottom of that triangle, and being there and to cut out Ferguson, or at least attempt to. And yeah, he's in the wrong position. He's gone wandering there. Unless he's switched places with someone, but I don't think so. As in, like, swapped with Longstaff for Longstaff to play the number 6, but I don't think so. He because Longstaff come on to replace Tonali. But yeah,
One thing that stands out for me, Dad, is that, and I've watched the clip back, so I've seen it as well. He doesn't move, so he loses the ball from Billy Gilmore, and Billy Gilmore then is on it. He's moving forward to join the attack. Ferguson gets the ball, and yeah, Bruno Guimaraes won't get back to stop Ferguson, but he doesn't recover. As a midfielder, you lose the ball, you have to recover. Your recovery runs are just as good as your forward runs. And that's what really frustrates me about Bruno playing as a number 6. I'm not saying that he's rubbish. He's a supremely talented player. He can't play in the number 6 because his recovery runs are not good. And I've been saying it for weeks, and I maintain it. He cannot play in that position because he doesn't recover. He vacates his position gets exploited, and then on the back of that, it costs the team. And what we're seeing this season now is it's putting pressure on that back four. That back four that was so solid, unbeatable, unbreakable for so many games last season, and now looking vulnerable because he isn't able to recover in the way that we want him to do it. But interestingly, now play it again. Look at the centre backs. So I've played it again.
running away from him.
Yeah, exactly that. So
yeah, you can see that. You can see that at the angle of the picture. I remember the replay where you see Bruno is out of the picture. You could see Anderson trying to track back, and you could see Dan Burn running away and Char as well. Not running away, but I suppose they weren't expecting him to find himself there isolated. They were trying to cover their area, let's say, and there was no one, as you're saying, there's no one there in that number 6 position to mop it up, to clean
absolutely.
up.
Spot on that. So like Bruno Guimaraes should have been there, but once Dan Burn turns around and sees that Bruno's not there, he should be out to him because that's his man. Dan Burn should be out to him. And the thing that annoys me the most about Dan Burn's defending for that goal, and Shaw doesn't cover himself with glory either, is that he doesn't even get in the way in the goal, he doesn't even get his body in the way to stop the ball from going towards goal. Where he's standing, and I've put Dan Burn to the side for a particular reason, is that he's not even in line with him stopping the shot at goal. He's almost saying, take a shot.
Shoot it.
Yeah, and he's almost, which is great in a sense that he's putting confidence in Pope, but actually he's just putting it, he's putting him in a position where it's a straight shootout between Pope and Ferguson. And Ferguson is going to lap that up all day. And it was a supreme finish, a superb finish. That for me is a huge problem. The vacating of the position from Bruno Guimaraes, the backing off of Dan Burn, and then the brilliance of Ferguson. And we've already talked about Pope wasn't great in that game. And I just think Sven Botman puts his body in front of the ball. He doesn't allow that to happen. He presses him high. He stops that shot from happening. They don't get a second goal. We're still in the game.
Yeah, and because that was we were starting to be more positive at that stage. The substitutions that happened, I think, was like about 7 minutes after that. 57 minutes. Yeah, it was exactly 7 minutes after that the goal happened. So yeah, it's a bad day all around.
It was. I'll bring this out for now. But look, there's a few more that I've got stored for little passages of play, goals and movements, not necessarily ones that we've seen, but ones that I'd like us to be playing a little bit more often. And look, the tactical will bring it out. we'll play it and we'll get people's opinions on it. But that was just something we noticed. It was a comedy of bad errors. Bruno burned for that goal, and it's why we've made the decision on our starting lineup, mate.
Yeah, no. It's great, Peter, and a great analysis of the goal. So I'm sure Eddie Howe and his team are sitting down looking at this as well, and they've got plenty of time now over the next 2 weeks to do so. Now we have kind of we're not ignored, but we've kind of prioritized the tactics for tonight, so we haven't been as involved in the chat so much. But let's go to one or two questions, Pete, and to see out the show. I'll go start. Rowan asked the question: surely Brentford is a must-win now, lads? I think so. I said the same against Brighton, but it is a must-win.
It's still early on in the season, so there's still lots more football to play. But yeah, I honestly, I expect to win. I do against Brentford. I do expect us to win. I expect us to bounce back. I expect us to really make a statement against Brentford. Brentford weren't great at home to Bournemouth. Bournemouth probably could have won that game. I do expect us to go out there and win. They've, on our home patch, St James's Park. I expect 3 points.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Just can't come soon enough, but they need the time to work this out. Right, John Askew makes the point. Eddie is magnificent, but he's too wedded to 4-3-3, and we said the same. We can't see him changing. I reckon playing Wilson up top with Isak just behind could be devastating, including after substitutions. Yeah, that would be nice. That 4-2-3-1 with Isak kind of playing a number 10 role behind Wilson, but he might switch to something like that if we were to go behind at any stage of the match, because that's what he did last year as well. He mixed it up.
Dad, I'll just throw a question out. Phil on Twitter, one of our avid watchers of the channel, he messaged me and he said that he'd love us just to put a question out there for us. So I'll put it to you and everyone in the chat. Is but question for Loaded. Does Eddie Howe have a plan B in terms of formation and style? I'm beginning to wonder. Do you think there's a plan B there with Eddie Howe, or do you think that's harsh, or do you think there is a plan B? But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
The plan B seems to be bring on Wilson and go more attacking. And because it did work out for him. We were at the game, the Southampton game, Pete, when like he turned that game with Wilson coming on. But that seems to be his plan B. He doesn't. He will go through. He as his day to day. He goes through and analyzes his next team he's playing, and he's set up to counteract them. But he doesn't look like he has a plan B in terms of how he wants to start a game. Like you can never see him deviating from 4-3-3. No, I don't see it.
Yeah, fair point. Adam McCarthy says no plan B in regards to the style, similar to what you've said as well. So yeah, I think Yana just put plan B is doing a plan A correctly. That's a fair point. But we'll see. We'll see how he opens that up. Sorry, that's gone.
Yeah, no, next one then from Munch. He asked question: do you think we tried to play the way West Ham did the week before against Brighton? Obviously, getting a brilliant result against Brighton. I don't think so. I think we played our own game and it just didn't work. We didn't turn up.
I don't think we have the players to play that. I think our players haven't. We're not built to play. We're not built to play how West Ham play. Equally, West Ham aren't built to play how we play. When we're on it and the football we play at, they don't play like that. West Ham are a very counter-attacking team. We want to control possession. So yeah, I don't think we tried to. I think we tried to play our own game, but it didn't work. Players weren't at it.
Yeah. These start comments were pretty much at the start of the show, but because John asked again, when Bruno regains fitness, can he play in the same team as Tonali? Like we put him in our team there as we played it out. We put him in our team, so we think he can. John. And something we did talk about too, sabotage. He says the starting 11 seems to have got complacent, knowing Howe does not make many changes. There is an element of that as well. But yeah, we're dropping Isaac, for example, in our team, and we're dropping Miggy. But let's see what Eddie Howe does.
Yeah, definitely.
I think if Gary V says, do you think we should have prioritized number 6 in the window? I think we said yes. But it also looks like they did have someone as a backup for Bruno, or an alternative to Bruno, and we have brought in Tonali. So let's see. In our suggestion, we've gone with putting Tonali in the number 6. So let's try it out. Let's see if that works for us. Mark says, how long do you think the owners will give Eddie Howe if the results continues? Eddie Howe's going nowhere for me, and even if we finish 10th this season, I still think that he'd get the full next season as well. He's going nowhere.
Agreed.
Grand. Okay, read this as I'm on screen. Saw a stat yesterday that said we have only 2 clean sheets from the last 29. Not checked but if that's true, that's mad. I can't remember. Seems very strange. 2 from 29.
I'm not saying I agree that that's the case, but I know it's been a while. I know we haven't had too many clean sheets, which is a concern. I remember seeing in the documentary, I think there was a question to him in the press conference about the fact that in one of the press conferences about the fact that he hadn't had a clean sheet for a while, and that was in the documentary. And to be fair, since then we've regularly conceded a goal, so yeah. I don't think he's got any better.
Yeah. Okay, last comment then that we've started tonight is from Brandon, and he goes, best channel on YouTube, looking forward to the 12th man this week. We're going to be ripped. Cheers, Brandon. But yeah, they're going to be coming for you again, Pete. But I think you'll take another chin again, and you'll turn it around. And much like Newcastle, when the results change, I think you'll be taking notes, and it'll be payback later on.
Yes, notes are being taken. Don't worry about that.
But I think we probably bring it to a close, Pete. We've done an hour and 40 minutes or so. But thanks for everyone for watching. Look, we try to do something different tonight, rather than focusing on all the negatives and being depressed about it. Like we said, we try and come up with solutions. Look, there's a few there for Eddie or whoever else to take on board. We can mix it up, and they have 2 weeks to work in it. But thanks to everyone for watching, for your comments that we didn't get to half them tonight. We'll be back again during the week with some more shows, 1 or 2 to set up. But make sure you smash that like button on the way out. And all that's left to say is, how would you like that? Good night, everyone.
Drink it, like me, then tell me you like that.